One of the most asked questions this time of year to anyone is, are you going home for Christmas? I'm sure you've probably had that question. I know I have had that question asked to me many times. Are you going home for Christmas? It's also, I think, one of the most challenging questions to try to think about. Of course, we would all like to go home or be home for Christmas, but which home is that? And what does home look like for us? Is it our current situation or is it our childhood home? For me, I would refer back to my childhood home. But for my kids, it would feel most welcome to be home in the home that we're in now. And as much as I would like to reverse the hands of time and go back to my childhood with my siblings and my parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles, and all of that happened over Christmas and Christmas Eve especially, we can't really go back, can we? And as wonderful it is to reflect on what those memories bring up and the joys of Christmas in years gone by, I have to wonder what Christmas looks like now. Where is home now? Is home about being at a certain location? Is home being with certain family members, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles and siblings? Home is not and has not been a safe place for everyone, so we can't assume that home is even a place that we would like to go to. Home is a hard place to define, isn't it? Even if you've lived in the same place for the last 20, 30, 40 years, it may not feel like home. Or if you've moved several times and you don't really have a place that you would call home. It's more about the people that gather together. And even then, it just doesn't feel quite right, does it? And we've all had people that we have lost over the year or a couple years, and because they're not with us, home just is not the same. It feels a little bit less like home. So when the question is asked, are you going home for Christmas? It's a challenging question to answer. We want to go home. We want all the special things that home might have. We want the perfect gifts, the perfect home, the perfect dinner, the perfect carefree everything. But it's not a carefree time of year, is it? It's notably been the most stressful time of year. Stressful because it's busy. Stressful because there's family struggles. Stressful because of whatever. And all of a sudden, we wonder if going home is really worth it. Maybe it would just be easier to not go home, which makes it one of the loneliest times of year. It is difficult, isn't it, to figure out where home is and what home looks like. And when somebody asks me the question, are you going home for Christmas? It's a hard one to answer. It's a hard one to answer for most of us. Well, this morning we're going to jump out of the Gospel of Luke where we've been the last couple of weeks, and we're going to shift focus and we're going to look at John's Gospel, the opening verses of John's Gospel, as we wrap up the fourth Sunday of Advent. Let me read this morning the beginning few verses of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness had not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was the world, and through the world was made, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not recognize him, did not receive him. And yet to all who received him, to those he believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Now, most of us are familiar with these opening words of John. Amazing introduction of Jesus being with God since the beginning and being God. Then leaving to come to earth to be with us. The Word, John says, was with God in the beginning and was God. He was at home with God. He was in the heavens with the Father and the Spirit, but left home to become human, to become flesh, to live among us. Now, maybe it's the wrong type of year to talk about going camping, but many of us travel this time of year. So even if you've booked a hotel and you're headed off somewhere, or if you have family coming, it's not quite like being at home, is it? And as much as you do all your research online and you figure out the right hotel to be in, that one that has breakfast included, that one that's close to the airport or family or has just got all the right things, well, even then, there's no guarantee that online is the same as reality. We recently traveled to Toronto and we got there, and online it says that there was a restaurant on site. And I thought, great, dinner is taken care of. And I wandered through the hotel. The lobby was smaller than this area. And I finally went up and I said, is there a restaurant? Online it says that there is. And she said, no. That word express means that there is no restaurant on site. But we have lots around. And I said, no, that's fine. We'll make do. We'll find our own place to eat. And we eventually did. But being in Toronto downtown, it's not like downtown Penticton. Downtown Penticton, you can walk into any restaurant at any point and probably, within 15 minutes have a table. And every place that we wandered to and we thought, oh, this looks like a great restaurant, it was a private party. Nobody else was allowed in. Or it was so full, the line was out the door and down the street, and we thought, well, we're not going to wait. And so it was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and we were hungry. We'd been walking all day. We'd just flown in. We had not slept well on the airplane. I mean, who does? And finally, we ended up at Tim Hortons for dinner. And it wasn't even a sit-down Tim Hortons. It was just a grab and go. And we took it back to the hotel room, and we ate our dinner. Whether it's a hotel room or if you're camping, think about camping. Not the 35-foot home on wheels camping. I mean real camping, tent camping. And I've done a number of tent camping as a child and as an adult, and there's something about that it's not home, is it? It's rough. And the biggest challenge often is the weather. Now, as a child, I can remember going camping and it rained for 3 days straight. And my brother and I were in a tent, and everything was soaking wet, our clothes, our sleeping bag. We had dug a moat around the tent to try to keep the rain out, and nothing helped. Finally, we went to the local laundromat and dried our sleeping bag. And day 3, we just packed up and went home, just to be able to dry everything out. When camping on Vancouver Island, same thing, torrential downpours for days. Everything was soaking wet. Camped in a tent in Saskatchewan, and come to find out we were in overflow camping. Not that there are any trees in Saskatchewan anyway, but it was hot. There was no shade. There was giant mosquitoes. You couldn't go back into the tent until 11, 12 at night because it was so hot. Tenting is not like being at home. If you were home, you'd just go in and flip on the AC and cool down. You'd go inside to get away from the bugs, and you would open the window to enjoy the rain as you listen to it from a dry place. It's not the same. Tenting is not the same. Jesus, in John's gospel, Jesus says that he came to pitch a tent among us. That he left his home to come and be with us. He went camping. Willingly gave up his home to be with us. Chose to come and pitch his tent so that we might come to know him. And no wonder the world didn't recognize who Jesus was. This was not his home. Sure, it would have been easier if people knew that he was the next king of Israel. Sure, it would have been easier if he was a conquering soldier with a great reputation, or that he was some glowing angelic being. But even still, would we have recognized Jesus? Instead, he comes as a babe in a manger. He was out of place, without a home, tenting among us in a world that didn't care to know him. Maybe your house doesn't feel much like Christmas this season. And maybe it does. Maybe it has all the things that you had hoped for Christmas. A full house. The smells, the sights, the sounds, the baking. Maybe it is exactly what you had hoped for. The kids are home. All the things are happening. And yet it's still maybe unfulfilled. Regardless of whether or not your house feels like a home, whether everybody's home for Christmas or not, Jesus was willing to give up his home. Walk away from being at home with the Father and the Spirit to come and to be with us. I wonder if Jesus really wanted to settle down and build a life on earth. Did he ever think about other things than ministry? Having kids, a wife, all the things. Or did he feel so out of place camping among us that his main focus was going home? He ate with outcasts and strangers, welcomed tax collectors and misfits, and he was willing to make a place for everyone so that everyone would feel like it was home when they were with him, so that everyone that encountered him would come to faith in him. And John says, even though Jesus entered a dark, chaotic world, the darkness did not consume him. You know, so often we allow this time of year to consume us and all the things, the shopping and the baking and all the events. We don't leave enough time to encounter Jesus. Even when you're camping, it's easy to get angry, frustrated with what you're dealing with. It's not home. I wonder if Jesus got frustrated because he was not at home with the Father and the Spirit. It's easy to get frustrated when you're camping because you have to do all the dishes without the dishwasher. It's easy to get frustrated because of the noise of the neighbor next to you and you can't shut your door and ignore them like you can at home. It's easy to get frustrated when you can't have a good night's sleep because you're sleeping on the ground in a tent. And it can consume us. John says that the darkness did not consume Jesus. Though he was not home, he made the best of it. And his goal was to welcome everybody to come into his home, to travel with him as campers in a journey, as travelers in a journey home, not in this home, but home in eternity. See, home is not a place. It's not a time. It's not even about particular people. Home is where we encounter Jesus for the sake of others, welcoming everyone as if they were in our own home. Jesus welcomed everyone as if he was welcoming them into the Father and the Spirit's home, into the Trinity's home. Even though he was not home, he treated everyone like they were coming to his own home. So as we get close to Christmas, as we wrap up this season of Advent, whatever home looks like for you this season, may you allow Jesus to enter your home. Allow Jesus to come into your darkness, whatever that might look like. Allow Jesus to come and shine his light in your world, welcoming with the Father and the Son and the Spirit to be with you and to be at home this Christmas.